Hey, y'all. Welcome to Marcy in the Middle, a podcast about transitions and the middle of life. Here we talk about everything from relationships to finding your place in the world and lots more. We'll talk with friends from all walks of life and find out what they've learned along the way. So whether you feel young or old or somewhere in between, this is the place for you. Welcome to the middle. Welcome to Marcy in the Middle. Today's guest is Breanna Webber, and she is graciously joining us from Tulsa to share her story that is heart-wrenching and also beautiful and lovely, as most stories are, if you live long enough to have one. And Breanna and Chris have struggled with infertility. That's kind of the nutshell version, and I am going to let her walk us through her story. And they've got a beautiful testimony, and they are very gracious to share it with other people. And so, if you are struggling with infertility yourself, or somebody you know is, you're going to want to hear her story. So I'll just pitch it to you, Bree. Give us a little bit of your backstory and how you and Chris met.
Well, thank you for having me, Marcy. It's an honor. I've never done this before. I'm a podcast virgin, if you will, or whatever that's called, where I've never done this before, but I've listened to lots of podcasts. But it's an honor, so thank you. Yeah, so my husband and I met. We had mutual friends when I was in high school. He's 2 years older than me, but was 3 grades ahead of me because I'm special and had to do kindergarten twice. So, uh, anyways, um, so we met at honor show choir, had mutual friends, didn't realize we had mutual friends. And he was dating we were both dating different people. And I actually thought he was going to marry this one girl that he was with. And we ended up, yeah, we ended up going to a Valentine's for single people. We had, again, mutual friends, and they were like, hey, Valentine's Day doesn't have to suck. Let's get together. Let's go to Dallas. So he was there. And I remember seeing him and being like, hey, I thought you were dating, what's her face? And he was like, yeah, no, we broke up. And I'm like, straight up to his face, was like, oh, I thought you were going to marry her. And he's like, yeah, me too. And basically, I guess that night, or yeah, that evening, I guess he saw how fun I was and how cool I was. And so he just started talking to me um, after that, and basically asked me, we like officially asked my dad, did it the old fashioned way. Uh, on March 26th of 2009, that's when we started dating. And then we got married a year later, March 26th of 2010.
So you had a whirlwind romance, and I remember
Yes.
your wedding. Um, so okay, you're married. Are you guys both in school at that time?
He was in school. I was just working. And I believe, so when we started dating, he had just graduated nursing school. We got married in 2010, and then in 2012, he got accepted into OU to become a nurse practitioner. And he was like, hey, we can either move to Tulsa or Oklahoma City. And no offense to my Oklahoma City people, but I was like, Tulsa for sure. And so thankfully he asked me, and he was cool with that. So that's when we moved to Tulsa. And of course, he wanted to be married for a few years and get grad school under his belt before we started trying for kids. And so we didn't start trying until I want to say it was like late 2013, I think, like around the holidays is when we're like, okay, hey, let's see what happens. And then, well, gosh, I don't know if you want me to keep going from this point or if you have.
It's your story. You go.
Okay, sorry. Um, so we started trying, and my Lord, um, it was a long road. It was like a couple years, and I was like, I think maybe we should see somebody for this. And so I basically got diagnosed in 2015 with stage 4 endometriosis. And that made sense to me when the doctor was like, okay, you're trying to get pregnant, you can't get pregnant. What are your periods like? And when you like Google endometriosis and you look at the symptoms, I was like, oh dang, that's me. And they're like, we don't know for sure until we go in and like do a laparoscopic procedure. So I was like, do it. I want to get pregnant. I want to see what's going on in there. And so that's when I was diagnosed. And they basically were like, yeah, there's no way you're going to get pregnant without IVF. And so I was like, awesome. So that it felt like someone punched me in the face, like in the gut, because I have always wanted to have a family. I've always wanted to have kids. So to hear that, I'm like, okay, God, what are you doing? Okay, that's not what I wanted to hear, but okay, we don't have to accept this report. Like, we'll just trust God. Well, honestly, we didn't know what we were doing. We're just like, okay, well, this is the journey we're going to be on. So here we go.
For sure. And we come from
Um,
sometimes you're just like, we're not going to receive that report and we're just going to plug ahead and believe, and which is great.
mhm.
Tell people to do that, but um, when it doesn't go like you think,
Yes,
now what?
exactly. Exactly. So we're like, okay, well, this isn't cool, but I'm gonna say these prayers and I'm gonna put these scriptures on my mirror and I'm gonna do the things I know that I can do. And in the middle of this, um, my husband and I ended up moving back to Durant for like a year and a half. And so I was actually in Durant whenever I got that diagnosis. And so it was great to have like my church family that I've grown up with to like lean on and pray for me. And I needed a support group. And I thought, there's not really a lot of infertility groups or groups on like people who want to become moms but can't be for whatever medical reason. And so I just created my own small group of like two people. It was like three, including myself. And yeah, and so that was really great for me. And then so we were just, trusting God. I had my small group. We ended up moving back to Tulsa in 2017. And that's when my husband and I were like, okay, let's see what we can do medically because not we didn't want to. It might sound like we were like, all right, God, well, you weren't fast enough, so here we go. I mean, it was for us to seek medical help. We were like, coming from a background of faith, we were like, okay, are we trying to like race God? Like, but we know also that God gives us medicine and, you know, so yeah, we that's when all of these crazy procedures, I say crazy, I had to have another laparoscopic procedure. I went through medically induced menopause where I had to go to the doctor once a month for 6 months to get a shot in my, well, anyways, I'm like going into too much detail. I'm like, anyways, so they had to give me a shot. And so, yeah, I got to go through menopause and I got to do all that fun stuff. And I ended up like they went in and like tried to flush out my fallopian tubes because those were crap. And so I finally like when I'm being told like you can't get pregnant, I got pregnant and I was like, what? Like, what is this? Like, I was like bawling my eyes out. You would think someone died because I was so excited. Um, and then I ended up miscarrying 8 to 10 weeks later, and that was obviously heartbreaking. Being there, so going in for the first heartbeat, he was like, I think that's your heartbeat, which makes sense because if you can't tell by like listening to me, I obviously have anxiety and I ramble and I'm just a little high strung, unfortunately. Um, And so I was like, yeah, it probably is my heartbeat. I'm really nervous. And honestly, I personally think that maybe something was wrong with the baby then, and he wasn't sure, or maybe he was afraid to say something because he told me to come back in 2 weeks. And when we came back for the heartbeat, that's when it wasn't there. And so, yeah, I've cried a lot in the last 9 years. Um, so let's see. I'm sorry. I keep looking down because I have a lot of notes here. We tried other things like timed ovulation, where more shots. Ended up trying to do after the miscarriage. I was like, well, let's try IVF. They say that's the only way I can get pregnant. So we did IVF, and that failed. So that was fun. Um, it we actually it was like doing we were doing so great. Like they got 20 eggs. We're like, heck yeah. And then they called me. I was on the way to drop my car off for a service, and I'm like on the road, all excited, like, oh, they're gonna call me to tell me, like, oh, 5 eggs implant, or we're, oh Lord, words. Yes, thank you. I'm going like this, fertilized. Um, and that's when they were like, yeah, we're so sorry to inform you that, none of the eggs took. And so I'm bawling and I'm calling Chris on the phone. He's like, turn around. I'm like, I can't go to car dealership like this. Um, I'm like, you need to come home. Like, you know, so it was after all of that. So that was about 2 years of all these different medical treatments, miscarriage. And so I was like, you know what? I need a break. So my doctor put me on some medicine to help with endometriosis, but I couldn't try to get pregnant on it. Like you couldn't get pregnant on it. And I had to like be on birth control as well. I thought that's okay. My body's been through a lot. I just want to rest. And so it was during that time that I auditioned to be an ice girl for the Tulsa Oilers hockey team. So that was a lot of fun. Woo! And so I'm so thankful that how everything happened in the timing. It might sound weird to say it happened in the timing it did or it was supposed to, but I'm just thankful, I guess, that God brought Ice Girls to me at that time because I got to meet some people I'm so close to, and I got to dance, and it was just a nice, fun hobby to have, something fun to do while I was like in the middle of all of this chaos.
Remember, because I looked today at the Facebook,
Yes.
because I thought that was so good. And I know when you're going through that, everyone is constantly asking you. So I thought it was genius to do a Facebook group that was private,
Yes.
add the people to, and then you got on and posted updates. And I looked at that literally 20 minutes ago, and it was like 7 years this month, January 20th, 2017. So, and that was
Yeah.
of all of this at that point. But I can remember just watching you on through the group, but on Facebook and being friends.
Yeah.
And I loved that you did the Ice Girls. And it sounds crazy probably to people, but I'm like, the Lord sent that at the right time. And you,
Right? It sounds weird, but
because it did, and I was so proud of you because that's not necessarily
oh,
the first thing you're going to think of.
no.
And I do, I'm just really proud of you because I think stepping out of your comfort zone to do something for you, um, that brought a whole other aspect to your life because I have not dealt with infertility myself, but uh, some of my family have had to do IVF and had to go through some of that due to some cancer. And unless you
Mhm.
are really close to it, I don't think people understand the. Honestly, it's trauma, Brie. Like I think you would probably say that
Oh, I would agree.
emotionally and physically, you're putting. There's a lot going on for
Yes.
and for the dad. Like it's just a whole thing on the couple, and I'm glad you mentioned Ice Girls because that was a good twist. Go ahead. So,
Yeah, thank you. I was just gonna say, you made me think of how you were saying it's hard on the couple, and a lot of people forget about the guys in this, I think. You know, men, they have hearts and feelings too, and they want families too. And I can't tell you how many times I felt like a failure. Like after my miscarriage, like the eggs not fertilizing. I'm just like, what the crap is wrong with me? And sorry, I keep saying crap, but um I I just felt like such a failure, and there were times at night. And I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but I've said this several times to Chris where I'm like, I'm so sorry that I can't give you kids. Like you chose me, you married me, and look where that got you. And he he just was so sweet and without missing a beat said, I would rather have you be married to you than have 7 children. And I was just like, you mean that? um, but he's always like, you know what, I love you. I would choose you. Even if I knew we would go through this, I would choose you again. And so to have that support is amazing because, you know, that was something he wanted, and that's something that I couldn't give him. And so that's hard. Um, that just kind of sucks, you know?
and I think the man also is worried about the wife a lot of times. Like he's actually concerned for your physical and emotional health and wants
Hmm.
to. So I feel like the the female probably has the pressure to produce a baby, although it we know it takes time. And the man probably feels pressured to care for the female. It's just a there's just a lot going on, and it tests a marriage. And I mean, just as you know people, and now there are a few accounts on Instagram where people have shared a little bit about their journeys, and they're almost always they say it's on tough on the marriage. So
Yeah.
you did Ice Girls, and Chris started playing hockey. Is that also true?
Yeah. Yeah, that's, thanks to me because he would come to the hockey games to see me and to watch hockey, obviously, but mainly to see me, and then, he's like, "Man, hockey's a pretty fun sport." Like, I knew nothing about hockey, and shortly not long after being with the Ice Girls, I would be up on the platform. We're supposed to stand, with our feet apart and our palms behind our back, and I'm over here like yelling at the ref, like waving my pom pom, like, oh God, I gotta chill out. So we definitely became hockey fans through this. And so yeah, so then he was like, I'm gonna play hockey. So there's like local leagues in town, and he's a part of like two, and it's crazy. So
Gave you it gave you a break from the process, but it also gave you something in common to cheer
yes,
in.
yes, it did.
That's good. Well, it's very fun to be your Facebook follower and see
Oh,
my friends. They're basically famous. Uh,
oh no.
athletes and ice girls. Um, so when you're in the midst of this and you discover did you do one round of IVF and then and
Yes, Marcy, it is so expensive. I was like, "Do you want my arm too? Like, am I gonna have to be a stripper to get this?" I mean, I'm just kidding. But no, I literally was like, "I'm gonna have to get a sign on the side of the road to be like, I help IVF, it's expensive." So we were like, "Yeah, no, we're not gonna do that again." All the shots, it's so emotional, it's painful. I was a baby. I couldn't even give myself the shots. I'm like, "You do it." And so yeah, after about close to $30,000 and it not working, I was like, I told Chris I would be willing to give it one more try, and he was like, I can't go through all of that again. And so I was like, that's fair. It's not that I want to go through all of that again, but if you wanted to, I would be willing to do that.
that was good that you kind of both agreed. That was that. Were you considering being a part of the foster care system at all prior to this?
No, and honestly, that probably sounds bad or sad for me to be like, I never thought about foster or adoption because I didn't. I was like, oh, I'm a female. I'm gonna have children. It's gonna be great, you know. And it was not great, and it did not happen, obviously. Uh, but it was through this process because even earlier on in my infertility process, I'd have people be like, you should adopt, you should adopt. And I remember my heart wasn't, as bad as that sounds, my heart wasn't really like there. And I was just like, oh, well, I don't, I want to try to have a family of my own. And like, and so the only thing I can think of is, or say is just that it was just a God thing and God's timing to where he changes your heart. And it was around the time that I was on the break. I was dancing for Ice Girls, and I was like, you know what? Fostering, there are so many children that need love. And if we have so much love to give and we're ready, but we can't have children, well, shoot, let's just love on a kid down the street or whatever, you know? Um, and so I wasn't sure how Chris was going to feel because he had never thought about fostering either. And I kind of brought it up and he was like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I know. And then I started talking to our dear friend who I feel like everyone knows because she's wonderful, Serena Backus. Shout out to her. I just started asking her questions and she was real with me. She's like, this is hard. You know, here's some advice. You know, I'll be praying for you. So she has been awesome throughout this journey with me. But yeah, so then I just kind of brought it back up to Chris and he was like, okay, sure, why not? And so we ended up getting our first foster December 10th of 2021. She was removed at 6 weeks old and placed with family. And then basically that family, they had other kids and it just was, there were different challenges there. And basically they were like, oh, we don't want the sweet baby to go to a foster family, but if that's what it's going to have to be. Well, hallelujah, guess who just got approved to be a foster mom? Me. Literally not even 24 hours later, I got the phone call. Well, okay, so I guess that is true, but I actually got a call in the middle of the night and I got a voicemail about a 3-year-old needing placement. So I call back and I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. And they're like, oh, we already found placement. And I was like, oh, okay, bye. And then I'm like, I missed God. I missed the call. Like I didn't know what to think. And then later that day, we got the call for our foster baby. And we had her for almost a year and I formed a great relationship with her parents and she ended up going back for a few months. During those few months though, she still had overnights with me. The poor thing, she still thought I was her mom and that I was just like, I felt like she thought I was abandoning her, so that was hard for me. But I'd watch her when I could, so thankfully I was able to still be a part of her life. Well, she ended up here in a couple of weeks. It'll be a year that she came back to us. So she ended up coming back, and it's just so crazy because I've always, wanted to have a little girl. And so to be able to get her, she was 4 months when I got her. She's now 2.5. To be able to see all of her milestones and all those important doctor's appointments and to be able to do her first and second birthday, like there are so many things I am so thankful for. I When I got the call for her, I was like, yeah, so is she up for adoption? Like what's going on? Like I'm like asking all these questions and they're like, well, she's not up for adoption. The parents, are trying to get her back. You'll probably only have her, we don't know how long, but not very long. So I could have said, you know what? No, I want a baby longer, but I didn't. And I'm so glad I didn't because, as I said, I had her longer than expected. Um, so, yeah, and in the middle of having her, we ended up getting a month before she went back with her bio parents for that short time, we ended up getting two girls. Uh, at the time, it was like a 9-month-old and an almost 2-year old. And I was just like, we are crazy. So we had three under three, and I was like, I need coffee and wine. That, like, it was crazy.
Uh,
Oh my goodness.
how long did you keep? I remember when you got them because I was thinking there is no there's no prep for that. Like it, you almost can't physically have that many children in that amount of time.
Right?
When do you have them? But you guys made it look like you were killing it. And it's hard. It doesn't matter uh, whether you have one, whether you have more than one. I will say 3 under 3 is a lot. I don't care by anyone's standards, but um, it was just, it was very fun to watch from the outside. And I cannot imagine, in all seriousness, how difficult it was to do. And I was so proud that you guys just said, okay, we're going. Like, you
Yeah.
made yourself available and your home available, and you don't know. Honestly, I think there's a lot of things we won't know until we're in heaven to look back what uh, what really was going on behind the scenes and what those.
Yeah.
So, how long did you keep those two?
So we had those two for 14 months. So here we were, had Melody for almost a year, and we knew that reunification was about to happen for them, and getting these two other girls, and life was just insane. And so Melody goes back to her parents, and we're like, okay, two, we can do this. Like, this is just two. And we enjoyed pouring into them. And then they ended up leaving. They went back to their bio mom, which I'm so thankful for my relationship with her. It's a good relationship to where I can video, like, FaceTime the girls and be like, hey, I miss you. She wants to schedule play dates. We've had one play date with her, but the girls went back in November of 2023.
Just a couple of months ago.
Yeah, yeah. And so we were like, okay, so trying to think positives, right? You're like, okay, so I hate to say losing. It sounds weird to say losing because, like, they're not yours,
It lost. So,
but it's a loss. It is a loss. Um, and I'm not quite sure where I was going with that, but I kind of lost myself there.
so November they go back, and you don't have any other children lined up to be coming to you at that.
No, not right now because like we said, the loss, the grief that comes with that. There's grief for kids, bio parents, foster parents. It's a tough job. It's really hard because you love these kids. And it was an interesting situation too, because we were told, like, hey, these kids need to be in a tribal home. I know I don't look it, but I am Cherokee. And so I am dual certified uh, with DHS and the tribe. And so they were like, we, these kids are going to be up for adoption. And so we kind of went into it, and that might sound selfish, but we're like, oh, wow, like, we're losing our girl, but we're gaining two more girls, and it looks like we're going to be able to adopt them. And then that just didn't happen. But like you said, we don't know God's plan. We don't know. We won't know most stuff until we get to heaven, I believe. And I truly believe the girls are supposed to be with their mom, and I'm just thankful that I can still have a relationship with them. But it was hard when they left. I remember, like, the day after they left. Oh, and so on top of all of my infertility, I had to have, because of all of the cysts I would get and my severe endometriosis, I ended up having to have a hysterectomy, a total hysterectomy, where they took all my lady parts out, everything. They were like, we don't need you, out. So that's fun. So I feel like I'm on, I say, this probably isn't respectful, but I call it old lady medicine, where I'm like on progesterone. I'm just on all this stuff. Which, if you're on progesterone, you're not an old lady. You're, but
Me and all my friends are taking all the old lady.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But that's just, I was having to process like, wow, this is weird going from, something you wanted your whole life to, okay, that's something you can't achieve and they're just going to take it out. And I'm just like, I'm still a woman, right? Like,
Well, I mean,
so
and I think um, I'm just thinking myself, are you thinking in the back of your mind, maybe a miracle is going to happen and I'm going to be able to have a baby on my own? Are you thinking at all about that? Or at this point, you kind of put that idea to bed?
I had peace about it. Now, if you would have told me 6 months ago, a year ago, I would be like, no, no, I'm gonna try other things. I'm gonna keep. It was weird. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't like doing things without peace, you know. So I and I don't like playing God. And like I felt like I was playing God with doing IVF, And so it's like, man, being a human is hard. Like so I'm like, I don't want to play God, but like we were like, okay, we're okay with trying IVF. And then anyways, it just when it came to my hysterectomy, it was so uh debilitating. Did I say that word right? So my periods were just so severe. I was in so much pain. I'd have to miss work. I'd throw up. It just was awful. To where, here, I have this sweet foster baby. Um, it 3 kids under 3, and I was having like 2 periods a month. So I was like, get this out of me. Like I just came to a peace with it.
It was affecting your quality of life. And at some point,
Yes,
as much as being able to have a baby biologically or naturally. Um,
right.
so you have the hysterectomy, and at that time, were you without children? You didn't have foster kids during the surgery process?
So I had so the 2 girls went back, but I still had we'll call her M because I don't know. I don't think I'm supposed to say her name. So we'll just say M. But I still had M. And what's crazy is right before my surgery was scheduled, the parents both relinquished their rights to her. And so we are in the middle of adopting her.
That
And so we're
is,
so excited.
and that helps too. At that moment, okay, the Lord is giving you some, a little more long term vision of.
Exactly. And I was so thankful for that because, grieving these girls that left like 3 days after my surgery and, grieving not being able to have, like, I knew I couldn't have kids, but like now I really can't have kids, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was, um, so to know that M was there and that we were going to start the adoption process, it felt like obviously like God was lining things up.
Awesome. So you're in the middle of that currently.
Yeah. Yes.
How long does that take? Do you know?
It kind of depends on where you're at and how long you've had the child. But we should be signing disclosures in about a month or so. And then we'll be able to set a date soon. And we're thinking about saving it for like putting the date for her birthday. Her birthday's in July. And so kind of doing a happy birthday and happy got you day, kind of like a dog, I guess, like a puppy that you fostered and adopt.
There will be a party. There will be a big party. Um,
Yes.
that is incredible, and uh, like we said, just a precious gift. Um, on the podcast, most of my guests have just kind of shared their stories, and they have been, like everyone's life. There's really good things, and then also really hard things, and some wins, and then some losses, like we've talked about. And grief is real, and you don't escape Earth without having some.
Mm-mm.
But really, the whole point of the podcast is for other people to get to hear someone's story and to understand it's okay to have all the feelings. It's okay to be really mad, really sad, um, and everything.
Oh yeah.
And then just, I always like to give my guest, and I would like for you to share today, just if you were speaking directly to someone who's maybe at the beginning and just discovered they're going to be dealing with infertility, what what kind of advice or encouragement would you have?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I would want to hug them, first of all. I'm a hugger. And I'd want to say, I'm so sorry, obviously, but that I know that doesn't do anything, but you are sorry that they're having to go through that. Um, and I would just say you're going to feel all the emotions. Allow yourself to feel those emotions. It's okay to be mad, like you said. It's okay to cry. Um, you're going to have days where you question if God, I mean, me, I had days where I was like, is God mad at me? That sounds really probably, oh, that's immature faith, but whatever. That was me, I guess. I just was like, okay, God, I know that you love me, but it doesn't feel like it. Help me not to doubt your love for me, as bad as that sounds. But yeah, so you're gonna feel all kinds of things. Don't be afraid to feel those. Don't be afraid to be real with God. Like me saying, "Are you mad at me? What's going on? Why does I mean, I remember one time crying on the phone to my mom, why does God hate me?" That it sounds weird saying that because I know God doesn't hate me and I probably sound silly.
You don't sound silly. You sound very real, and I think people need to know that that's not you can't scare God or hurt His feelings. In that He can handle all of that, and He welcomes
Yeah.
even believe, and He's the only one that can give the comfort. Like He's the only one that can comfort us when
Well,
it's
it's like after I got diagnosed, I cried, right? Like, "Oh, you can't have kids. Like, you're gonna have to have IVF." Well, we didn't want to do that. We don't want to hear that we can't have kids. And I just was heartbroken. But then, of course, after being heartbroken, I felt such peace. And it's like weird. Like, how do you feel peace while you're heartbroken? Like,
exactly.
it's hard to explain, but you do. You get closer to God when you are real with Him. He wants us to be real with Him. He can take it, like you said. And so, yeah, be real with God, be real with yourself, allow yourself to be sad and all the things that you'll feel. Journal. Journaling really helped me. If you want to see a therapist or counselor or whatever, that's great too. But yeah, those I don't know if that's good advice or not, but oh, don't listen. People don't listen to everybody. People have will say stupid stuff and just let it roll off your back and just smile. You're thinking you are so bless your heart, but you don't have to say that. You can just smile and say thank you and then walk away and you know, work that out because people mean well, but they will say things that you already know and things that are not helpful. Like, well, if you're too stressed, you're too stressed. Like, oh, I did it. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be like rated R here, but who's stressed when they're, with their husband making love? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't stress me out. I'm not stressed. Like, what do you mean? I'm not stressed when I'm not like, okay, we gotta have a baby. Like, I'm enjoying my husband. Sorry if that's we can you can edit that out, I guess. But so I always just thought like, what? Like, no, I'm not stressed over here. Like, I'm not over here. People thought I was stressing, I guess, because it was a desire of my heart. Um, but and just trust God. Well, no, no shit, Sherlock. Excuse my French, but you know what I mean. It's just that's honestly what I thought.
Yeah,
So
like it is like you said, people mean well, but most of the things that we have to offer are not good enough. And for true pain, I mean, it, it's tough. And honestly, I think, and you can speak to this a little bit, but or a lot to this, but sometimes it's probably better for somebody just to be quiet and have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee with you and listen to you and not offer
Let's,
any help, we'll say.
that's exactly what I would suggest for people who have who know someone who's struggling with infertility. To you don't We know you mean well and you want to be there for them. How you can be there for them is if they're like a hugger, like hug them, tell them you love them. Just really simple things. Like you said, after my miscarriage, I had a couple of close friends from the church come over, and they brought me a bottle of wine and ice cream. And I just sat on my floor. We just sat on my floor. I don't know why, because I had a couch, but we sat on my floor and we were just crying and talking and laughing. And they weren't like, they were just like, we're here for you. We can talk about it or we don't have to talk about it. And so, of course, God uses people in many ways, and God may tell you to encourage someone a certain way. He may say, it's different if you feel God's pressed on your heart a certain scripture and a name pops up and you're like, oh, I feel led to text this person today or to call this person or whatever and be like, hey, I just wanted to share the scripture with you, love you or whatever. Um, of course, God can use you to words and scriptures to encourage people, but um, it doesn't always have to be, you don't always have to say something.
Yeah. And I feel like, and I'm 52, and looking back, have probably, I call it scripture spouters. I'm like, you know,
Mm,
do, does that make anything better right then? And I've been that person, and I cringe thinking just because you want to fix it, you want to help, and I'm like, I do think a caution to people: be careful what you say. God told you to say,
right? Yeah.
because sometimes we do a lot of talking for God that I'm like, He's like, I didn't say that, and I didn't.
No, exactly. That's why I never say God told me anything. I'm just like,
I think
here,
I feel like
I don't even know. Honestly, I think I just say it. I'm just like, I love you. God is with, or no, I don't even say that. God is with you in the hurting because obviously He is. But like, I just encourage in ways that it's not like the Lord saith, because I don't know. The Lord's probably like, shut up, Bree. I didn't say that.
let me handle it. No. I do think, and I'm glad you noted that. Sometimes just people being there and in the floor with the ice cream is great, and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of have to walk that out. Um, did you? One thing I wanted to ask you was
Yeah.
resources for people. Like, were there any books you read or social media accounts that you followed or anything
Yeah.
that helped you? Like you said, kind of gave you a community.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh gosh, I forgot to write this down, but for fostering, because we're currently fostering, there is an amazing support group in the Tulsa area. They go outside of the Tulsa area too, but I don't know like how far out they go. Um, well, that's not helpful, is it?
We'll shove it down in the notes.
Let's do that. I can see it's like life family something, but that has been a great support group where they post things online and they have support groups in different areas where you can come for dinner. They watch your foster kids, they feed you, it's free, it's amazing. And so that's been great that I did not write down, but I'll get to you. um let's see here. So speaking of fostering, there is a podcast. I've only listened to a few, but the few that I did listen to that was good. It's Fostering Change by Rob Scheer, Scheer. And when it came to books, this was a while back, like when I read these. So there's probably more really
Yeah,
great
current.
books now, more current books now. But In Due Time, Hope and Encouragement in the Waiting by Caroline Harris. I think is how you say her name. It's like Harris, but then with an E before the S. So I don't.
No,
Hooked on Phonics did not work for me. So also Hope in the Dark by Craig Rochelle. That was helpful for me. And then on Instagram, if you're doing IVF or you've done IVF, the IVF warrior, Cheryl Dowling, she's fantastic to follow. And then Waiting for Baby Bird is fantastic by Alicia Kearns. Those are some of my faves.
notes. That's good. And like human resources, I like you said, Serena, and I know Roxy Hall is a friend of, I'm sure yours, and
Yes.
there are some people locally who have fostered and adopted and can kind of give the internet. You can too. Um, what would you say to people? What do people need to know about foster care? Like if someone's considering that, what are some of the things to consider?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's a roller coaster. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of and to do, but it is very hard. Um, this might sound bad, but don't believe everything that DHS tells you. I'm not trying to hate on DHS. DHS is great. I have a great DHS worker. I've worked with great DHS workers, but honestly, things change so much. You can be told one thing and then another thing will happen in court, or you'll be told one thing and then it's one thing after another. So you truly don't know what's going to happen. You have to take it day by day and just, make sure you know why you're doing it. You're doing it for the children because there's kids out there who need love and you can provide that stability that they need, the environment, love that they need. But yeah, just expect it to be messy at times. It gets really messy. Expect to have all kinds of feelings when you're dealing with bio family because I can't imagine. Obviously, I couldn't have kids. Um, and so I could not imagine having a child and then losing it, even if it was because of my own consequences or choices. I um I could not imagine going through what they're going through. And so having grace for the uh, bio families. And it's okay to feel weird. Like if you're helping with a drop off and you're dropping off this baby that kept you up all night or that, you've had for a year and they call you mom and not that you encourage them to call you mom and it's just what they wanted to call you but they're going to their actual mother and there's all kinds of feelings with that where you're happy for them and you're glad they're having those visits, but then you feel like a fake mom. I call myself like the kids. I joked. I was like, yeah, this is my rent a kid because they're not mine and I can't have them. So um gosh, Marcy, I hope I'm not rambling. I probably am, but
I just think people, it's people want to hear
yeah,
the reality of the situation because when everyone has an angle, and so and it's just a lot. It's not one simple
no.
way to do something, and I think sometimes we start thinking, well, something's wrong with me if I think it's messy, and I'm like, no, parenthood of any sort is very messy.
Yeah,
The foster care system is literally people are doing the best they can, but it's a wreck.
it
And
is.
horrible for everyone involved, literally.
Yes, and then like the system is messed up a little bit. And there are times where unfortunately children shouldn't go back, or things are swept under the rug that shouldn't be swept under the rug. So yeah, if you know someone who fosters and you're like, oh, I think I want to foster, I would encourage you to like go to dinner with them, ask questions, hear what they have to say, because I'm sure they have a lot to say. Um, because there's just so much more than you think. Like I did not know it was going to be like a roller coaster. I was just like, Lord Jesus, I don't like roller coasters. I didn't know I signed up for this.
Yeah, real. Did you are you guys gonna keep your name out there for the foster like to be open once you get him permanently? Are you still taking kids?
Yeah, so right now, my sweet husband, well, we both have had a hard time with our other two leaving. Um, it's so beautiful. The mom's doing great. We're so happy for her and have, like I said, a great relationship with her, but it's a loss. And he's like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like, this is really hard. And so I'm like, it's really hard and it's okay to not know and it's okay to grieve, but let's not make any permanent decisions because we don't know. We're not doing this for us, we're doing this for them. Uh, and so he's agreed to, you know, have an open mind about it, but we both agreed to just wait until the adoption is finalized and go from there. But God forbid, I'd hate to say no, and then there be more children out there, and um, well, I know there are more children out there, but I don't know God's
Yeah,
plan for us, and it's just you take it one day at a time. And so right now, our home is not open to anybody but our little lady, our little 2.5 year old. But who's to say what is to come? We don't know, possibly.
and I think also it is fine when you said he said he didn't know. It's totally fine to say I can't do anymore right now. Like I do think people sometimes we take on more than we want to because we feel like that's the right thing to do. And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's okay to care for yourself and to let yourself
Yes.
through the things. And I mean, the grieving process, whether it's a death or a loss, is the same, and it takes a minute. And your heart is human, and
Hmm.
it needs care. And sometimes that's the best you can do because you want to be healthy for her.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. A few days after my surgery, the girls were gone. I'm in what we call the playroom now. It's this huge room that was like the playroom slash, oh, I said her name. Well, she's back with her mom. So maybe I can say it now. I don't really know the rules. I'm sure there's a foster parent out there listening saying, oh my God, this woman. Bring me on the podcast, Marcy. I know what to say. I know how to explain this. But yeah, so anyways, one of the girls' rooms was in the big room. So it was her room slash playroom, and her bed was still up. We didn't take it down yet. And of course, I'm just emotional anyways. On top of having this major surgery, I just start bawling. And sweet M, Mommy, you okay, Mommy? Here, you need your pillow. I'll go get your pillow. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay. I'm sorry, Mommy's okay. But I was just like, Mommy's sad, but I'll be okay. Mommy misses, the girls, but it'll be okay. And then, I don't want to be crying for like 30 minutes in front of my toddler. So like I get it together and, you know, tag team it with crying.
I think it's healthy to have the emotions in front of your kids. That's because
I
and that's what you're modeling. So
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know if I backtracked there, but yeah, you go through so many emotions. I feel like I'm still processing them being gone, and um, takes time to process
I
uh grief.
just physical body getting sorted out because menopause is no joke and you're literally thrown in immediately. Like
Hmm.
at the surgery. So just kind of getting all that figured out is
Yeah, I'm on hormone therapy. It's fun. So fun.
Have you had good luck with hormone therapy?
Have I had good luck? Ask my husband. No, I'm just kidding. I think I have. It seems to be going well. There are moments, but I also think it's because of just everything that's been going on in our life recently. There are moments where I'm like, "Ooh, I almost feel depressed. What can we do about that?" Like, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Um,
And just like life in general is tricky, and sometimes there doesn't even have to be a big reason. But you got
mhm.
you. I really appreciate you sharing because it's a lot and it's very personal and hard stuff. And I do love. I'm gonna brag on you for a minute. You're great
Oh,
biological parents because I think sometimes we vilify people because it's easy to do, and you're looking at children going, "How can this be?" But a lot of times, the biological parents have been through a tremendous amount too, and maybe when they were kids, also, and just treating people with kindness and respect is so important and so Christ-like that I just think I love that because you can I've seen that in your posts and in your heart and I know, like you said, it's tricky to navigate all the feelings and try to live that your faith well. And faith is a struggle. Like it's not.
oh yeah,
If it was easy, you wouldn't have to have faith. But
exactly. God is working on me all the time. I am a piece of work, let me tell you. So,
one of his pieces of work, I'm sure. We all we give him. I like to say, I'm give him a run for his money, and yeah, he's not left yet, so that's a good that's a good sign. Is there anything else you kind of want to say, or that you would like people to know, or
gosh, I don't know. I honestly kind of like blacked out during this interview or whatever you want to call this, to where I'm like, I hope what I said made sense. But yeah, I do. I think we covered, gosh, a lot of it, and just find your support group. Make a support group if you have to. Read what books that help you, listen to what helps you. I did a lot of crying and a lot of journaling and a lot of worship music. And then I'd also do a lot of like rock and other stuff. like, I, like it's okay. Jesus isn't mad at you if you listen to some rock or something. You know what I mean? So,
we
um,
back to the Ice Girls? But I think that was really good to totally give yourself permission to focus on something else and have fun. Like
yes,
that's just a perfect way to give yourself a break. And
it was so much fun. So maybe someone needs to like pick up a hobby or something, like find something that maybe you've always wanted to try but you didn't think of before.
true,
What, that didn't make sense, sorry.
it does make sense, and that's good in many circumstances, not just this one. Like
Yeah,
yourself, have a little fun and do something you might be surprised you like.
yeah,
Well, um, I guess we'll let you go. Get back to the thing.
yeah, yeah, get back to my little baby.
Well, you have to check back in with us and keep us posted. And
Yes,
I want to be invited to that party. Uh,
yes.
yeah, it's going to be exciting, and we will pray for you guys and her throughout the process. And I'm so proud of you, and really, really
Oh,
appreciate you coming on and
yes, thank you so much for having me.
y'all have fun and tell Chris we said hi.
Yes, he says hello as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, and hit subscribe to keep up with all future episodes. We'd also love for you to leave us a 5-star review. That wraps it up for today's Marcy in the Middle. And remember, whatever you're in the middle of, you're not alone. We'll see you next time.